Hi everybody, it's Chris and welcome back to another video. Thank you very much for joining me today. Now, the other day I was playing some of my 45s. I'll give you some examples of this. They're mainly I think they're all 80s based actually. So Ghost Town by the Specials on Two Tone just summed up the UK at that particular time. An absolutely classic 45. Love Cats by The Cure. I love that song. It's just a brilliant song. Reminds me of the time at university. A classic Blondie single, Call Me, which I think was a #1 in both the US and the UK. Giorgio Moroder written, brilliant single. The Smiths, a band that sometimes divides opinion, but this is a classic 45, How Soon Is Now, with just a brilliant guitar sound from Johnny Marr on it. It's a wonderful 45, that. And Papa's Got a Brand New Pig Bag from 1981. This is a great single. I love that from Pig Bag. And one of the things that binds all of those together is that they are all 45s that weren't on an album. And that got me thinking about other singles that I've got that were single only, non-album tracks. And obviously one that does spring to mind is of course Blue Monday by New Order. But I started to look through my punk 45s, and one of the things that always irked me a little bit when I bought punk albums is they didn't often have the main 45 on it. And that used to really annoy me. Now, I understand why record companies might do that because they're trying to shift units of singles and shift units of albums. But, you know, the Sex Pistols, their 4 main singles were on Nevermind the Bollocks. Granted, their B-sides of those singles were non-album tracks. But so I've got for you today, I thought it was 20, but actually when I put them in this rack here, there's 19. So I've got 19 45s that were non-album tracks. Tell me what you think about these choices. These are probably my favourites. So at number 19, we've got the Dead Kennedys, US punk band, Too Drunk to You Know the Rest. Great little 45 from them. At number 18, The Members, a band that really brought back humour into punk, and this is Killing Time back with GLC, neither of which were on their debut, which was the Chelsea Nightclub album, which is a great album. At number 17, Give Me Everything by Magazine, one of their early singles from 78 on Virgin Records, written by Howard Devoto after he'd left the Buzzcocks, but a decent 45 from Magazine. Slightly later, this is an 81 single at number 16, and this is New Order and Ceremony, which is a great 45. And then at number 15, Your Generation by Generation X. And this, I remember getting the Generation X album and it didn't have this on it, and it kind of irritated me because this was the best song that they ever did and it should have been on the album. And I kind of get the idea. So I know that bands in the past have, you know, so the Beatles certainly brought out a lot of non-album tracks, as did the Kinks and the Who and the Rolling Stones. So I kind of get the idea. But when you're buying the albums, it's really nice to get the singles as well. Anyway, that's a good example of a non-album track. Number 14 is Sham 69. Now, they didn't actually produce an album till I think about 79. I don't have an album by Sham 69, in fact, and I think this appeared on a compilation around about 79, 80, I think. But If the Kids Are United was one of several singles they did that actually never found its way onto an album. At number 13, the debut single from the Au Pairs, which doesn't feature on their debut. This is You, which is a great little kind of post-punk song. It's great stuff, love that. And at number 12, it's Elvis Costello, Watching the Detectives, one of his really famous songs that didn't make it onto Armed Forces or My Aim Is True or any of those particular records. At number 11, Tom Robinson, 2468 Motorway, classic 45 from 77. For some strange reason, I think it did appear on later issues of that album, and I think the US edition of that album, but it wasn't on the original UK. And I've got a feeling that Tom Robinson, on reflection, thinks that was a bad idea, because it would have enhanced that album hugely. Great 45, but non-album track. At number 10, Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, Ian Dury. Now, I think this did appear on later versions of New Boots and Panties. In fact, I'm pretty sure it opened up side 2, but originally the original run of that album didn't have Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll on it. At number 9 is a band that produced a lot of 45s that didn't find their way onto albums. So What Do I Get is a good example of that. Everybody's Happy Nowadays is another. Orgasm Addict, I think, is the pick of their non-album tracks that were singles. I love that song, it's brilliant. At number 8, Susie and the Banshees, Hong Kong Garden. I always thought it was daft that this wasn't on the Scream. It would have just been brilliant on there. Having said that, I guess it doesn't really fit in that well with the rest of the album, so I kind of get it. But a classic 45 from 1978, the debut single from Susie and the Banshees, Hong Kong Garden. At number 7 is a band that had an enormous amount of success, both albums and 45s, and many of their 45s weren't album tracks. In fact, quite a lot of the B-sides weren't album tracks either. And for me, this is the pick. Now, it's not the most successful. They had a couple of number ones which were non-album tracks. Strange Town, Going Underground, and the band of course is The Jam, and All Around the World. So this came out at the same sort of time as the album In the City, but didn't make it onto the album. Now I know they look a bit like a mod band, and I guess they were to some extent, but this still retains that kind of youthful, angular, jaggedy, aggressive sound that The Jam had when they first came out, and that really fitted the bill at that particular time. I love that 45. It's an absolute classic. At number 6, another band produced numerous singles that didn't make it onto albums. So things like I Fought the Law is a good example of that. Clash City Rockers, of course, we're talking about The Clash, and Complete Control. For me, this is the last good thing that they did, pretty much. I kind of lost interest after this. This came out after the debut album. It wasn't on the debut album. From 1977, absolutely brilliant 45. I really love it. It's one of their best songs, I think. I don't know if it's their best 45. I think that's White Riot, but it's a great 45. Didn't make it onto an album. After that, I just think they got a bit too clever for their own good, personally. But anyway, at number 5, I always thought this was a missed opportunity not having this on the debut. This is Teenage Kicks by the Undertones. I think it's on later editions of it, and it may well be on the American version of it, but it wasn't on the original UK for some strange reason. Classic song, Teenage Kicks, the Undertones. At number 4 is a single from a band that produced their debut album. This song wasn't on it, although again later reissues rectified that and they did add it. And it was a strange decision because all their other 45s are on their debut album, so I don't know why they didn't put this on there. But anyway, the Adverts, Gary Gilmore's Eyes. I mean, their main guy, TV Smith, had a brilliant way of kind of storytelling, and that is a fantastic 45. I love that. I don't know if it's their best song. One called Wonders, I think I like that slightly more possibly, but you know, nostalgically, this is one of my favourite songs by the Adverts. Non-album track initially. At number 3 is a band who produced a couple of non-album tracks. Walk On By springs to mind, although that was released on a free 45 with a black and white album. Of course, I'm talking about the Stranglers. Now, this is their 45 Peaches, which was on Rattus Novedicus, their debut album, but the B-side wasn't really a B-side. Originally, it was a double A-side, and that is Go Buddy Go, and that's a fantastic song. Now, their debut album is like a greatest hits as it is. Imagine if that was on there as well. Absolutely brilliant song. I love that. And then we've got the top 2. I have no idea why this song wasn't on their debut album. Again, all their other 45s are, and I think it's their signature tune. I think it's brilliant, and it's X-Ray Specs and Oh Bondage Up Yours with a classic saxophone break in it. It's just a brilliant 45. That should have been on their debut. It's a shame it wasn't, but it makes that 45 really unique. And at number 1, a post-punk classic that is probably the greatest non-album track that ever found itself on a 45. And that is, of course, Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. A wonderful song, their most tuneful melodic song by quite a long way, I would have said, but it's just a brilliant 45, non-album track from Joy Division from, what's that, 1979? So there you go. I'm sure I've missed loads. Tell me your favourites of singles that didn't make it onto an album. Thanks very much. I'm sure I'll be back sometime with another video. Cheers.